Hello, hello, everyone. Founder of Angelica Arc here. I am here to brighten up your universe through my life coaching and medium work. And I'm here to help you to master your energy through my Reiki and sacred geometry healing sessions. However, today I am hosting a 30-minute podcast with an extremely special guest. I am so excited. We are going to be talking about intuition, everything to do with intuition, from what is it? Why is it important? How can you become more intuitive? And if we have time, what's the link between intuition and being a psychic? And even how can you tell the difference between logic, fear, and intuition? So without further ado, I am so excited to welcome Kim Townson. Yay!
Hello, my friend.
Hello. So Kim, you're a life and spiritual coach. You're a teacher and an owner of your very own coaching academy named Ellabird. And I will put the information in the comments section below. So I am so pleased you're here. The aim today is to educate, encourage, and excite all of our listeners. So without further ado, Kim, yay, intuition. What do you think about intuition?
Thank you so much for inviting me. I just want to say thank you so much. The work you do makes my life better. It makes your clients' lives better. It makes the world better. And you contribute to raising the frequency of the planet. So I just want to say thank you. And I love you.
I love you too. This is so exciting. I love this subject, intuition.
I do too. I have to tell you, I've been coaching and teaching for about 6 years. And I've been, I'm a psychic medium, but for a long time, I didn't know that or understand it. And I felt so much more comfortable leaning on the word intuitive. And I think sometimes people maybe have a story in their head about what does it mean to be psychic, or perhaps they have preconceived notions, or maybe it goes against the belief system and the way that they were raised. And sometimes the word psychic can feel unfamiliar or scary. And so I have found that a lot of people lean more towards intuition, or they're more comfortable saying, oh, I'm intuitive, or I listen to my intuition about that. And that seems to be, and I'm in the States, in my culture anyway, that seems to be almost more acceptable. But what's so funny is, people were saying to me in my business, I teach all these different topics, and people were like, you should teach intuition. And for the longest time, I kind of knew that was true, but I was sort of scared. I was like, how do you teach intuition? Doesn't it just come naturally? And what will people think of me? And what will people think? If they sort of embrace that they are intuitive or psychic, and what's the difference anyway? And for a long time, I sort of resisted that. And I will admit it was part confusion, part fear. And so finally, one day I sort of came to this place where I realized this is important work. And the reality is the success of my life, the success of my business, the success of raising my family, the success of the 25-year career that I had prior to my business, a lot of it was based on intuition and was based on psychic ability. And I decided I was doing not only myself, but others a disservice. To shy away from it, to be fearful of it, does ourselves a disservice, because it serves us so well, and it can so help us choose direction, and it can help us choose who we trust, who we hang out with, who we hire. And so I thought, I really need to do this. So I will admit, I announced I was going to teach that class, and because you were in it, I rescheduled 3 separate times because I was so nervous. And so eventually, I put it together and I taught the class. It went wonderful, and I'm really glad I did it. And I think the biggest takeaway from me when I was teaching that was first doing it for myself, then helping students do it. And I'm hoping I can help your listeners do this, is sort of deconstruct the fear that's around the topic, and also understand, so what is the difference between psychic ability and intuition? So for me, the way that I taught it in class, and it seems to have resonated with a lot of people. So I'll tweak it along the way, but for now, sort of where I land is, okay. So the word psychic actually comes from the Greek, and it translates as as the soul or of the soul. So it's so connected to the core fabric of who we are.
Right.
And so to me, psychic is the way that we receive. We also transmute, but let's talk about receiving. We receive information, and then it's the intuition that actually helps us translate what's the meaning of that. So let's give like really specific examples. When I, with my physical body, when I hear ding dong, I hear that with my ear. So that's my hearing ability. But then my brain translates, oh, doorbell, somebody's at the door. It's the exact same thing. With our psychic ability, we receive information, and then it's our intuition that translates that for us about what does that mean. So a really safe way to look at this, people really understand how animals connect to intuition. We don't seem to have any stigma around, the zebra sensed the lion in the tall grass and trust that enough to run. And we don't, point and laugh at the zebra and call him silly or overreacting or dramatic. They're like, oh yeah, he must have sensed that lion was in the tall grass. And we do that with the animal kingdom and nature all the time, but for some reason we don't afford ourselves that same luxury. Excuse me. So I was thinking about like a horse, for example.
Uh-huh.
So a horse will feel, he has the ability to feel a shift in the barometric pressure. And when he feels that shift in the barometric pressure, he can translate that information to understand that means a storm is coming. So, we use that analogy all the time, like we say a horse with a storm coming.
Yeah.
And how a horse gets sort of anxious and nervous and antsy. And really, it's just responding to information that's come in and then translating what that information means. For humans, it's the same thing. Psychic is actually pulling in that information, much like our ear pulled in the ding dong.
Yep.
Psychic is pulling in the information, receiving it. And then the intuition is translating that. Well, what does that mean? I had this feeling. What does that feeling mean? Or I thought of this particular song, or I thought of that person I haven't seen in 10 years. What does that mean? And we start to translate it with our intuition. So it's so funny because people will say all the time, well, I'm really intuitive, but I'm not psychic. And
absolutely, I love that. Yeah,
technically, like the psychic came first.
I know.
The psychic is what receives it, and it's the intuition that then translates it. But without the psychic, there's nothing to translate for the intuition.
I know when you shared that with me, just this year, actually, at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh my goodness. So many people are like, as you said, they're so fine saying they're intuitive, but they all like, oh, psychic, that sounds too weird and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yet really, if we just, are not afraid to say it out loud, we're all psychic to some degree or other. I mean, we're all psychic. It's just some people have tapped in and are more in tune with it than others.
Yes, exactly. It's very much like singing. I believe, my belief system is that now that I've done this work long enough and worked with clients and students and just friends and family and myself, I have figured out that everybody is psychic. And it's like singing. Everybody can sing for the most part, unless they have obviously a physical issue going on, but everybody can sing. So let's break that down for a little bit. So some people can sing very young in life. We see these 2 and 3 year olds who sing these amazing songs and can hit this amazing pitch. And some people come into it later in life. Maybe you join your church choir, in your 40s or something, and you come upon it later in life. Psychic ability is the same thing. Some people simply know it earlier in life, and some people come upon it later in life. Also with singing, some people, it comes to them very, very naturally. They don't really have to do much. It just sort of happens. And other people, they have to develop it, or they take a class on it, or they read books on it, and they actively engage in activities to strengthen it. And it's the same thing with psychic ability. Some people, it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And other people really have to kind of decide, I want to grow and strengthen this skill set. Also with singing, some people will sing, up on a stage in front of thousands of people, and other people will only sing in the shower, will only sing in their car. And psychic ability is the same way. You see psychics on TV or people who have made a profession out of it, and other people, I'll be honest, I know one woman, and she would tell me, well, Kim, I am a little bit psychic. And she would whisper it. And I thought to myself, how interesting, because clearly somewhere along the way, she has been given the message that being psychic is a bad thing, but she's not screaming it from the rooftops. So it's the same as that person who will only sing in the shower and not in front of others. So I really feel like everybody is psychic, just like everybody can sing. It's just that some of us are better at it, or it comes more easy, or we're less fearful about it. But really, everybody is psychic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And then there are just different ways, as you said, of trying to connect to it and let it come in. So I know in the past you've also like made it more verbally easy for me to connect, in the sense you'd say, you know, take self-care. And for me, that would include, if I wanted to try and just even tap into my intuition, using the word that most people feel more at ease with. For me, that would be something like, you know, just sitting still and even just taking that breath, because sometimes I'm just rushing around, and even, you know, focusing on the breath is a way for me just to connect and to clear the mind. I think the real key is clearing that mind. For people who are not into meditation, which I know you are, I know you do that every morning just before you start the day. I think that's just the way that you connect, isn't it? It helps you to ground and to just get connected for the day. But for me, it could be just, you know, a 20-minute walk in the park, or maybe even just pottering around a garden if you're lucky enough to have one. And also just making sure that I've got enough good ingredients in my body. So obviously being hydrated and drinking water, but also watching what I eat, because if I ate stimulants and other type of foods, I would feel disconnected. Like, so I suppose most people might understand, if they drink alcohol, straight away they understand that, you know, that has that effect. Either it numbs you, or it relaxes you, or it makes you loud, but it is changing a little bit who you are. And for me, that would be very key as well. If I'm trying to really focus and tap into my intuition, or even my psychic abilities, I would stay very pure, just, you know, when I'm trying to tap in. How does it work for you?
Um, for a long time, I didn't meditate. For a long time, I'd written this story in my head around like how meditation should look, or has to look, or it has to be the right way, or you have to sit a certain way, or it has to be a certain period of time. And for a long time, I really got in my own way. And what I have found is that slowly, as I released that story of how I think it's supposed to look, and I let it just sort of be what it is, and I let myself off the hook and took the pressure off, it really has become a very useful tool in my life. And I'll be honest, it started years ago when I'm like, okay, I'm really going to try to do this. It started with such a simple step. There was this one day, I'm like, I'm just going to let it be what it is. And I sat down to meditate, and I had an itch on my foot. And it's so interesting, the stories we create in our heads that trip us up. And I was like, should I scratch the itch? And I was like, of course I should. There's an itch, scratch it. Otherwise, how am I going to meditate? I'm just going to be distracted and thinking about that itch. And from that moment on, I decided, it worked so well. I just decided I'm just going to, you know, if it falls asleep, I'm going to rub it. If it's uncomfortable, I'm going to stretch it. If it itches, I'm going to scratch it. If I'm distracted, so be it. Maybe it'll be better tomorrow. But I'm not going to write a story around what meditation has to look like. The other thing that was super helpful for me was, again, the whole tying it into how I thought it had to be. I thought it had to be like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. I can't. My life doesn't afford me that. And maybe I'm distracted. I'm not sure, but I just know it feels like too much pressure for me. It feels like too much pressure. I have to keep the children quiet, and I hope nobody walks in the room, and you know, my to-do list. And it's just with such pressure. And so I picked an easy number that worked for me. I picked 11. So I like the number 1. To me, it represents new beginnings, and I tend to meditate in the morning, which is always a new beginning. And I like repeating numbers. To me, repeating numbers are part of my intuition. They signify to me that spirit, the universe, you know, my version of God, whatever you want to call it, is always around us, always supporting us. We always have invisible, unseen helpers. And so I picked 11 minutes. I said, I'm just going to meditate for 11 minutes. And if it feels really juicy, delicious, good, I'll keep going. And if not, I don't have the time, or I'm distracted today, then I won't. But at least I know I gave it a go. And so I went with 11 minutes. And that was probably 2 years ago. To this day, even this morning, before I got on with you, I meditated for 11 minutes. And that works for me. And so the benefit of taking letting myself off the hook, the benefit of undoing that story I had in my head of how meditation was supposed to look, allowing myself that freedom and those liberties, really was able to afford me meditation as a tool for connection. And to me, that's what it's all about. It's all about being able to connect with what? Connect with whatever it is you feel you need to connect with. For me, it's like the highest, best version of myself, which completely ties into psychic ability and intuition. My being able to meditate for 11 minutes seems so silly or short or insignificant, but it's actually such a significant tool for me, sort of clearing that static energy around myself and allowing myself to just sort of be open to whatever I sort of hear or feel along the way during that meditation. And it really has served as a tool for good in my life. And the other thing that has really helped me along the way, talking about stories in our heads, is I had this story in my head that I had written. And what's awesome is when you write a story that doesn't work for you, you get to rewrite the story because you're in charge. But I had written this story in my head that it had to be hard. Like, maybe I'm not a good singer. And so now I need to hire a teacher and I have to find the money to pay for lessons and I have to fit it into my schedule and it has to be hard. And same type of thing with psychic ability or intuition. I felt like it had to be hard. I had to do it like, quote unquote, right. Much like meditation, I had to do it right. And what's right for one person is not going to be right for another person because it's so personal. Intuition is so personal to who we are, what we believe and where we are in life, how much static energy is going on around us, how much we are sort of mucking up our own works or allowing clear energy to come through. And so, two things. One is the self-care, like you mentioned. Self-care, it sounds like so silly, like, oh, it's a massage and a facial. And to me, that is not self-care. To me, self-care happens multiple times every single day. Everything from, how much water I'm drinking, how much sleep I'm getting. And I do like a good facial and massage, don't get me wrong, but also, how much exposure am I allowing myself to toxic energy, whether that be too much media, too much, social media, that person always makes me feel bad about myself, but really taking the time for self-care and changing the story that it has to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. And so it's sort of too long a story for today, but I had this one experience where what it boiled down to was I have this analogy. I call it the pool of yes. And I imagine standing at the edge of a pool with my back to the water and my arms spread out. And I'm smiling and I'm open and I close my eyes. And this pool is psychic ability. This pool is, intuition. This pool is connection with spirit in whatever way I define that. This pool is honoring who I am at my core and connection with my higher self. And I imagine just releasing and letting go and falling back and falling into this pool of yes. And what that has done for me is when something happens that is psychic or is intuitive, it's a receiving of the information and then me translating what I think it means. What I've noticed is that by falling into this pool of yes, I'm much more likely to identify something as my psychic ability and my intuition, which strengthens it. The minute I own it, it strengthens it. And I'm much less likely to say, oh, that was a coincidence, or oh, that was just good luck, or oh, that was fate, or oh, we do these things where we think about that person we haven't seen in 10 years, and then we run into them at the grocery. And we think, isn't that strange? Well, maybe you had psychic information coming in and then you interpreted that, thought of that person and ran into them. Or maybe, in business, when I was in business, I was executive director of a not-for-profit for 25 years. I did a lot of hiring. And, when somebody would walk in, I swear their resume was probably what got them in the door for the interview. But, and of course there was body language and all of that, but really my reading their energy and allowing myself to honor that was a huge part of making the right decisions for who I hired. Who you hire can make or break your team and make or break your goals for sure. And so when I'm more likely to dismiss that and say like, well, yeah, but she answered all the questions well and her resume is really strong, and just dismiss the fact that I have this anxious feeling in my belly after having interviewed her, I'm probably going to make the wrong decision for hiring. But if I can fall into that pool of yes and allow myself to own my intuition, own my psychic ability, own what I'm really feeling, I can make better decisions for myself.
Absolutely. Oh my God, you just made me think of just so many different things. So one of them is just when if I do like a meditation, mine are really short, 3 to 8 minutes.
Mhm.
There's different thoughts come into my mind. I now embrace them. I know meditating is actually about clearing the mind and not thinking of anything. But I think, if it's there for a reason. So now I embrace them and I think, okay, that thought came into my mind, or I heard that noise outside. And I might even, have my journal next to me and write it down and think, what am I trying? What intuitive insight is coming my way? And going back to your last, what you were saying about in the office and just intuitively knowing if employing that person was the right decision or not. Absolutely. It's all about, for me, the energy of people. On paper, they might be perfect, but in reality, the energy just doesn't work. And that goes also into like behavior and characters. I mean, different people blend better together than others. So I think intuition is just an amazing word that everybody actually is using every single day, but some people just don't realize how powerful it is. Because for me, I'm going to make like a sweeping statement. Intuition is the answer to absolutely everything. I
agree.
truly believe that to all the ultimate questions that we ask other people and we go to other people for advice, if we just sit still and tap into ourselves, I really believe that the answer that we hear, that first answer, if we ask ourselves a yes or no question, we will know the answer. Is that person in danger? Do I need to make that call? Should I post, I don't know, this message or send this text? We just need to get still and tap into us, because we are all born perfect. And once we start to realize that we actually have all the answers as well, I think we just become more at peace and happier with the lives that we have. So that's how I see intuition. And then what do you think about, because you're so in tune now, like I am myself, but I mean, if people are just trying to say, okay, we're new to this, we don't really know if we're intuitive or not, what type of things might people feel or experience? For example, okay, we often hear, somebody often says, I've had a shiver down my back. What you said just resonate. That's really true. It really resonates with me. I actually don't get the shivers. I don't get the goosebumps either. What experiences have you heard of that people might have, which is, oh yeah, this is intuition kicking in, this makes sense? Or
Well, it's so funny because often what we hear are the times that they didn't listen to their intuition and it went all wrong. And so we'll hear people say, like, I knew it. I knew it. I had a feeling. I felt it in my gut. And it's so funny because those are the stories that we tend to hear. Because when we listen to our intuition and everything goes great, it's almost like we don't give it credit. It's almost like we don't go like, woohoo, I picked up on energetic information and I translated it and I made a decision based on it and it went great. I'm psychic. I'm intuitive. Like, people don't give themselves that kind of credit. Instead, we hear when it went wrong and people kick themselves and go, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. And so if somebody is, to answer your question, if somebody's at the beginning and they're like, I'm not even sure where to start. One of the best tools that I used when I was first starting out was, I call it an evidence log. And so an evidence log is simply, you grab yourself a little notebook or keep it on your phone, whatever is handy, whatever's going to be close to you. You literally want to have it with you every moment of every day. You don't want to have to remember something and get back home and tonight you're too busy and you forget to jot it down. But you have, something small that you can capture your thoughts, your experiences, and you write down anytime, just what I said, anytime that you got an intuitive ping and it worked out. Or anytime that something happened and you went, wow, I thought about blue jays this morning. For some reason, when I was blow drying my hair, I was thinking about blue jays. That's the strangest thing. And then today, a blue jay landed right on my car. I came out of work and there was this blue jay on my car. That's evidence. That's evidence that the information that we receive with our psychic ability, and then we translate it, even if we don't know what it means. Sometimes maybe you don't know what that bluebird means. Maybe it's just that spirit's talking to you and saying, hey, you're loved, you're worthy, you're valuable, you're supported. We're here. Reach out to us, like connect with us. This is real. I think that's what it is. This is real. If you think about that blue jay when you're getting ready for work in the morning and you come out of work and there's a blue jay on your car, that is evidence that this is real. The intangible, the non-physical is real. Put that in your evidence log. And what happens is more and more as you write those things down, you start to create like a momentum. You start to go like, ah, that really did happen. And oh, I remember that really did happen. And you start to create almost a sense of confidence about your own intuitive abilities. Also, on those really hard days where you're like, maybe this is all just poppycock. Is this really real? And that whole, like the old story, like steps forward in your head, or the old programming, the old conditioning steps forward in your head, or the fear steps forward in your head. You can open up that evidence log and you can look at it. And I used to do this all the time on difficult days. When something would happen and I would think, could that be true? Is that really real? Did that really happen? Or if I'm having a day where I'm so stuck in the physical that I'm feeling a hard time for inspiration, I would open up that evidence log and I would look and I would go like, yeah, I remember that day. I remember the day that bluebird showed up. And oh my gosh, I remember that was real. I remember how I felt when I saw it. I remember how I felt like, gosh, that's confirmation. That's a validation that that thought I had this morning wasn't random. And it almost reinforces and helps perpetuate that momentum, and helps strengthen our confidence that this is real. The psychic ability is truly a gift that everybody has. I almost hesitate. Oh, I want to add this if you don't mind. I almost hesitate to use the word gift because I feel like some people, remember we talked about that story right in our head. I feel like some people have the story in their head that well, I don't have that gift, or the psychic people are special. We talked about those who feel like psychics are weird or strange or woo woo, but then there's also that population who feels like, oh, I really believe in psychic ability, but that's for the special people, and that's not me. And I just want to say that's not true. It's not the case at all. Like I said, everybody can sing, and so everybody is psychic, and the more that you practice your self-care, the more you maybe try to connect with your higher self, however that looks, meditation or walking in nature or prayer, whatever that looks like for you, and start keeping that evidence log so you can capture it when it happens and fall into that pool of yes. So when it does happen, you can afford yourself the opportunity to celebrate it. You're going to start creating momentum. You're going to start shifting those old stories in your head. You're going to start relying on your own confidence. And like you said, once you start doing that, once you start relying on your own confidence and you start really being sure in yourself of this is real and this is good and this does guide me, that's when you start to really look less to the people around you for your answers, and you start to look less to the culture around you for what do you think about yourself, or should I make this decision, or what will people think of me? And it's not that it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, that conditioning runs deep, but it really does. Once you start to connect with this, allow yourself to believe it, capture those moments with your evidence log, and really start to weave it into part of your belief system, part of your identity, part of who you are. It starts to help you navigate your own waters and not have to look so much to the other ships to decide which direction to go.
Absolutely. I mean, I 100% agree. And I also would just like to add, for those that are still having issues, like if they have their diary and what was a coincidence, is also to maybe observe your dreams.
Yes,
you can actually in the morning, I mean, it has to be the first thing before when you wake up to write them down. You can't even pop to the bathroom first because you'll forget them. But it's not about necessarily the story, what did you dream about, but how did it make you feel? Because I believe that could really be the subconscious that is trying to get a message across to you, and actually can be, when you really get in tune with that, can actually influence each and every day. It can actually, if you're really tuned into those dreams, when you wake up, like subconsciously what's going to happen and how that day is going to pan out. So you could also do like the dream diaries, not just the evidence log, but also about your dreams. We only have about 5 minutes left. And just before you continue, I just wanted to pop in and just explain how our listeners can identify the difference or distinguish the difference between fear, logic, and intuition. Because I do get asked this question, and I think it's extremely relevant. What I would say is take a seat, shut your eyes, take that breath. Take 1 or 2 or 3 breaths, as many as you feel. And when you're still, you need to feel the energy in your body. And let's start with fear. What does fear feel like? And the reason we're doing this is because sometimes people say, I don't know if it's intuition, or is this fear, or is this the logical mind? And so I can't listen to my intuition, because what happens if I get the wrong one? So feel the energy in your body. Fear, where does it reside? Now, for me, it's really funny. Some people, it might be in their throat, in their gut. Mine is actually all around the ovaries and the private parts. As soon as I'm fearful, I just feel it right down low. It just sucks right down there. And listen to its voice if it has one. Try to understand how it's feeling. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it sucky? Whatever it is. And now imagine that you've got a radio in front of you and you are in control of the volume dial. You can turn it right up or right down. And fear, most of the time, you're going to want to get that radio dial and turn it right down to a 1. And then, like, log that in and understand that every time you get that feeling, for me down below, ooh, sucky thing, that is fear. So I'm not saying I'm going to override it, but I'm now aware that when I'm fearful, that's not intuition kicking in. Then logic. Take that breath again. Obviously, you will do this more slowly when you have time. And do you think logic is in your head? Do you get a headache? Do you feel it in your head? Again, do you get hot or cold when the logical brain is working? And again, imagine that radio and that dial. And you want to be moving the dial up and down. And I think you should be leaving logic at about 5. Because sometimes we do need logic to make decisions in life. And then intuition, this would be the quietest noise I would feel, or the quietest feeling. And try to work out where it resides. Take a breath, feel the energy in your body. Is it in your heart? Can you hear whispers in your ears? You can test it out now and ask yourself, am I safe? Or another question, will I be okay? And whenever you feel that something's giving you an answer, for me, it's an automatic answer. I would turn that volume up, the imaginary volume on this radio, right up to about a 9, even a 10, but anyway, at least a 9. And so you've now got your fear and intuition and the logical answers all at different volumes. And you can ask yourself all throughout the day, yes and no questions to kind of really, fix those different feelings into place. Because intuition will never be afraid. Intuition never has fear. So if you ask yourself, shall I go out now? Intuition would just say, no, in a nice, calm, grounding voice. Whereas if you ask yourself and it's fear answering, it might be, no, it's dangerous out there, full of panic because of COVID. And if you ask yourself and the logical answer is coming up, it might be, you don't need to go out at this point. It's very logical, it's factual. And doing this and practicing this, as often as you can, really will help you to tune into your intuition. The intuition that is never afraid, it's an instant answer, and it's always, in my opinion, once you've tapped in, the right answer for you at this particular time. What do you think of that?
Oh my goodness, Angela, Michelle, my friend, you gave me chills. I do get chills. That is almost like, oh my God, that's like poetry. I've never heard you explain it that way before. I loved that. It's such a useful tool. It's like very like, like imagine this and here's your dial, and so useful. But also, as you were saying it, it's so funny. As you were saying it, I literally wanted to turn the volume up, which tells me that everything you're saying is good, accurate, and true. And it just gave me chills. That was like poetry. That was beautiful. That's one of the best activities I've ever heard. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. My wise, wonderful friend.
Yeah, I like to put a bit of logic into things because, you know, it's people love tangible things and I do too. And I love to just know, well, how can I tap into this intuition? How can I get all the answers to all the questions
What a
that
good
I
teacher
never
you
asked
are.
myself? So, listen, our time is up. I know it was short, but maybe we will do it again one day. The beauty with intuition is that, you know, it just keeps growing and developing as we go
Mhm.
through life. And the more we learn about it, the better we become at making decisions. So this has been a blast. I've loved it.
I
I
have
felt very
too.
safe in your in your hands, hearing your wise words. And everybody, listeners out there, if you feel that a life and spiritual coach will help you to achieve your goals faster, or if you indeed want to become a coach, then please contact Kim Townson, Ellabird Coaching, and I will send the link again in the comments. So, and any other questions you have, you know where I am, Angela Michelle, aka Angelica Arc. Thank you so very much, Kim, once again, for sharing your insights and wisdom with us on this magical topic, which I truly love, intuition.
Thank
I'm
you so
sure we've
much.
educated everybody, or at least excited them, and we are signing out, both of us, with so much love.
So much love.
So much love.